In this quick review, we're looking at the Mackie ProFX10 GO battery powered live mixer, a small 10 channel live mixer. And I'm looking at it from the point of view of DJs. How might a DJ use a mixer like this? Why might they want to choose this one? And we're calling on my personal experience with this mixer because I recently used this to play at a festival where we use the things that I've got plugged in here in the way I'm going to talk to you about now. So before we start, this is a student supported channel. We are a DJ school. Everything we do is paid for by our students. No one pays us for reviews. There's no sponsored content and no affiliate links or partnerships that you don't know about. That means that what we tell you on this channel is our genuine thoughts, and we only review gear that we use and teach with. You have to know that because it's pretty rare on the internet nowadays. Right, this mixer here I've got plugged in between my DJ controller and the PA system, and that's the crucial thing that you need to know here. That's the way DJs use live mixers like this. This is another example. This is one that I've used for years. I don't know why, it's just because it's been knocking around the studio, I think. It's a little one from PV. You'll see this is a little bit smaller than this one here, and actually that's one of my criticisms of this. It's just a bit bigger than it needs to be for DJs. DJs tend to underuse the features on these things because they've got lots of microphone channels and inputs here for instruments. You've got really good microphone preamplifiers here and compression on the mics and all this stuff. It's not really used by DJs. Now, if you were using this as a podcasting live mixer, which you might be, and indeed it's something that I might consider using it for, they come into play. And obviously if you're a band, then they also come into play. I'd say it's probably a bit underpowered for bands and so on, as we're going to look at some of the limitations of it in a minute. For a DJ, a little bit too much. So maybe a bit smaller would have been good. But anyway, it's battery powered. That's the important thing, because the setup that I was using it with was a battery powered old fashioned turntable setup with two portable battery turntables, a really simple mixer. And we just quickly got it onto a stage, plonked it down, and I started playing with this mixer. No need to plug anything in, no mains, no bricks, no adapters, no nothing. We just got going quickly, and I had to because it was at the end of a festival where people would have gone if we couldn't quickly get the music going as I DJ'd people out for the last hour after the bands had done their thing. So in my case, battery was the thing, and I think that's what we're going to come back to at the end of this review. If you need a battery powered live mixer, there's not many of them out there. So this is likely to be something that you'll look at. Let's go back to how I was using it then, and I'll talk you through some of the features. So 10 channels, you've got 4 mono channels here. As I say, you've got your microphone preamps on these channels, compression and so on. You've also got your stereo channels, and there are 3 stereo inputs, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 10 is the Bluetooth and also a mini jack input here. So these are all controlled by the 3-band EQ. You've also got these yellow controls here which dial in the effects, which we'll talk about in a second. And then you've got your main faders, which are, for the sake of size, actually knobs here at the bottom, pretty typical on mixers like this. Overall effects level here, and then crucially you've got your outputs to headphones or control room and main output here. That's another reason that I use this mixer. So let's talk a little bit about why I use this mixer and how I used it. So the output from my really basic DJ gear was un-EQ'd. I had no microphone, I had no booth output, and I had no backup in case it all went wrong. And all of these things were provided by this mixer. I also had a basic RCA output, which wasn't good enough for a sound engineer who would want a nice balanced XLR output. Again, something that this gave me. So this is how we set it up. We put into channels 5 and 6 directly from my DJ gear the stereo output, which was then controlled by the 3-band EQ here and the main level here. I just left all this completely on unity and flat, but because I was DJing on old-fashioned vinyl, some of it very worn, very old, I would use the treble just to put a little bit of fizz back into the more worn records I was playing. So I would just kind of lean over and use this in the way I would have used the EQ on my DJ gear, had my DJ gear had any EQ at all on it, which it didn't. I also used the bass to roll off a little bit when we got some feedback from the decks as well. I used the effect here to add a little bit of microphone reverb. Now the effects here are a little bit limited, so you can only dial in one effect at a time, and then you just choose how much of it you have on the individual channels by dialing them in there. That said, there are quite a few effects to choose from here. I just use a simple reverb to add a little bit of something to the microphone. You can also have 6 presets here as well. Now it does have an audio feed to a computer, so there's a roundabout, there's a USB-C alongside the power and the power input. So this USB-C can be plugged directly into a computer, which allows you to record the stereo output from it, but that's it. So again, for bands, a bit limiting. There's no multi-channel recording, it's just the stereo output. But there's also a 4 in there as well, so you can feed in from the computer as well. So there's some flexibility there. But also it has the Bluetooth, which I did use. So the Bluetooth will connect you up to a phone, so you can have that as an extra input in case everything goes wrong. But also you've got Bluetooth out, so I guess you could also stream from the unit without a wire to the phone in order to maybe live stream, but that's not something that we tested. It's certainly useful as a live stream mixer with that audio interface built into it. Okay, so my audio is plugged in here through in one of the 3 stereo channels and coming through here. When the audio went to this section, we had the other thing I needed, which is the main output is here. This is the main volume, which has got a nice main meter here, so you can check you're not clipping. However, I also needed this. This is the main output here. These are the XLRs heading off to the PA. I also need to plug in my own monitor speaker because the on-stage monitors in the venue were big, huge monitors. They were actually on the floor of the stage in front of me. And as soon as we turned them up, well, one, I didn't get any control over them because there was a sound engineer off on the side. So he's like, do you want the monitors on? I'm like, well, not all the time. I like to turn mine up and down when I'm DJing. But also they were on the floor. They were vibrating everything. They were just causing the decks to go haywire. So I wanted my own monitor. I had a nice little monitor on a pole next to me, which I could use the volume control here to turn up and down. The second volume control, so your main one, it's called control room. Ultimately, I was using it as a booth level here. So this was the other crucial thing I needed. I didn't only need to have a bit of EQ and a bit of level control, a bit of effects, a microphone, and a professional output. I also needed a booth output, which I could use to control what I was hearing up on the stage. For what I just described, this mixer worked really well. It's got way more than I actually needed. It's got things I haven't even talked to you about here as well on it. But from a DJ's point of view, that's always the case with these live mixers. There's always more than you need. The crucial thing, of course, is how did the battery last? Well, the battery in this is replaceable, which is a cool thing. You can charge it, the second one, away from the unit. So if you're playing for days on end, you could always have a battery recycling, and you just need to quickly switch it over by picking the unit up, and there's a compartment underneath. The battery, they say, will last for 8 hours. It lasted a whole day when I was rehearsing and practicing my set with no problems. And you can plug in the power on the back there and it will just recharge. The light on the top here will flash when it's charging, and then when it's finished charging it will stop flashing, so you know it's charged. However, there is no other way of checking the battery. You know, it will tell you when it's running out, but at that point it's running out. So it would be nice to know what the charge was between the kind of 20% and 0 when that kicks in. You know, is it 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80? There's no way of knowing. So I would like to have seen a better battery meter on it. Again, let's sum up by talking about, from a DJ's point of view, who needs a battery mixer for whatever reason to plug in between their gear and a PA system. This has got slightly more than you need, and therefore it's slightly bigger than you need, but it's still, as you can see, quite compact, and it will do that job. It has the flexibility for live streaming, for feeding in extra sources, whether you're using Bluetooth or whether you're using the digital connection to do that, which does mean that it's pretty flexible for things you might want to use it for in the future, as well as simply DJing with it. For instance, recording your set would be easy to do through those things, but it is a bit overpowered for DJs. And conversely, it's a little bit underpowered, I would say, if you're building a bigger system with extra musicians or something, a hybrid DJ set or whatever, because the effects are all or nothing, and some of the other routing is a little bit limited, especially you can't record multi-track on it. And it's a little bit pricey, I guess, because of the battery side of it, because it's a specialized unit that is doing something a bit different. There's not really anything else out there like this unit here. There's a couple of Behringer mixers that are a bit smaller than this, that are battery powered, that you could use instead of this as live mixers, but they haven't got quite as many features. But I can't think of anything else. There are other live mixers that you could potentially power from a battery pack, but that's kind of making it a little bit complicated, again, for no reason, right? It's, if you're going to be going for a battery mixer, presumably you're going for convenience, and that's in this. It is built really nicely as well. It sounds really nice. Clearly that's an important thing. The sound was really sweet. I don't know if it was just the vinyl I was playing. Playing vinyl always sounds nice for some reason, but the sound was really sweet. Also had a great audio engineer who managed to stop my turntables feeding back. There wasn't enough EQ on this to do that. I could have just cut the bass entirely, but then it would have sounded pretty nasty. But the audio engineer front of house did a really good job of getting my really cheap old-fashioned turntables that weren't really up for the job that I was asking them to do to sound amazing. So thank you, Tony at fresh.gi for that work. And if you're technical, he put a 120 hertz filter on the exact frequency that was causing the feedback, and then he stuck a dynamic compressor on it, so it was giving me the bass when we could, and when it was getting a bit much, it was taking it down. Good job, Tony. Right, so back to the mixer. If you're looking for a battery mixer, there ain't that many of them out there. It does the job. Certainly for a DJ, it's going to have everything you ever need, I would suspect. It's the ProFX10 GO from Mackie. Not the cheapest, but build quality, features, they're all there for the use case that DJs would typically want. This has been a Digital DJ Tips review from Phil. If you've got any questions about this, as ever, you can ask them underneath in the full review article, which is linked if you're watching on YouTube, where you'll also find up-to-date prices and other specs for this mixer. We're here to help, so ask away. Meanwhile, get good, get out there, make the moments. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.